I'm Nika. And I bake. Like, a good amount. Especially these days, I've been baking a lot more. And I want to figure out how to do it more creatively. I know it's important to, like, learn from the masters, not try to reinvent the wheel, but I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I just kind of want to bake something new and interesting. So I figured out a couple recipe ideas, just like brainstorming, and I want to maybe like document it and bring y'all along with me. So the first thing I wanted to try baking, because I love lemon meringue, and so does a bunch of my family. So I wanted to figure out how to make a lemon meringue pie that doesn't involve the pie crust, because I hate making pie crusts, because they suck. So I wanted to figure out how to make some sort of lemon meringue parfait. And hopefully you guys can follow along and we'll figure it out together, you know? So yeah, first things first, let's go to the store.
So I started out to the store. It was actually a lot less crowded than I thought it would be, which was definitely nice. Partly because of the social distancing thing, and partially because running into people you know these days is just really awkward. Anyway, I started to set out my eggs, and started separating them. It's a moderately simple task once you get used to the techniques and figure it out, but that doesn't mean I can't still fuck it up. Thankfully enough, it's a pretty easy thing to remedy, so you can just scoop it out and pretend nothing ever happened, just like I do with all of my mistakes. Once we split this last egg, we can begin our workout, which will consist of the sheer amount of whisking that this recipe will require. Seriously, this one is not for the faint of wrist. Really? I knew that joke was bad, but the cricket effect? Okay. Anyway, once we add our whole eggs to their halved brethren, we whisk again. We put away our eggshells and set aside our egg whites. The egg whites will be used in the meringue later. But the eggshells can be composted or just used in black magic rituals to resurrect the great spirits from below. Once we're done with that, we're going to whisk in the sugar, about quadruple as much as your average Midwestern mother might add to her spaghetti. Then we're going to grab our cornstarch, where the container looks like it was literally pulled from the 1950s. And once again, whisk it all together. And if you want a fun drinking game to go along with this video, every time I say whisk, take a shot. By the end of it, I may have parfaits, but you will most likely have alcohol poisoning. Now we're gonna add some salt. You can get some from really anyone who has a strong opinion on theater kids, or what kind of pasta is best. They're very salty people. Then we get our knives. This one's probably my favorite, partly because it's nice and sharp and makes cutting these lemons really easy, but mostly because the grip is really nice, so if I needed to kill someone, it would be easier to get the job done, you know? Am I the only one who thinks about what it might be like if a home intruder came in while I was cooking and I had to defend myself with nothing but my bare hands and what I have around me? Then again, the kitchen is a pretty well-armored place if you're gonna get attacked. And in my kitchen, we actually have an island in the center, so I feel like if I crouched down behind it, I could probably hide and slit the Achilles tendon on the attacker's ankle before they could do much. And that might buy me enough time to call somebody. Or maybe just enough to get a jump on the attacker, and to subdue them before they can actually do anything. Bind them up so they can't escape, and wreak havoc anywhere else. And then, I guess, call the cops? Make sure their knife wounds aren't that bad? Speaking of knife wounds, though, I actually had several cuts on my fingers while I was juicing these lemons, so that definitely made it more uncomfortable. Maybe even more uncomfortable than listening to this audio for hours on end while editing. Or maybe not. Honestly, I'm not even really sure why I bothered juicing all of those lemons. I mean, freshly squeezed lemon juice is not that different from store-bought. It's not like lemon zest, where it's one of those things that just has to be fresh. So, I'm not really sure why I even put myself through that. Maybe it's just because one of the few constants in my life is how I'm barely spinning off the cliff-like edge of self-destruction, making decisions and then suffering through the consequences, just because I'm too stubborn to take back even an objectively bad decision. Or maybe it's just because the lemons were on sale. I could go either way. Anyway, once we add our butter and our lemon zest, we are gonna whisk for another long while before moving on to a moderate heat. It should feel just warm enough that you're tempted to put your hand on it, but a little too warm for you to actually commit and do it. Then we are going to whisk until a thin froth forms. Kind of like sea foam, if the sea was yellow and tasted like lemons. Then, once it gets nice and thick, with 3 C's of course, we'll pour it into our containers. I'm using these glasses, which are a little bit wide, since they're technically supposed to be for shrimp cocktails, but they're the only tempered glass containers I had handy. What even is tempered glass, by the way? I've never actually asked, because it feels like a dumb question, but I have really no idea. All I know is tempered glass doesn't crack when you pour hot things in them, or put really cold things in them, but otherwise I am completely unsure. Anyway, then we're gonna go to the fridge, pop them in, to let them chill overnight. The next day I woke up totally exhausted. Maybe because I spent the entire last day baking, maybe just because I stayed up watching TikToks. It's anyone's guess. Then I grabbed my favorite mug and started the day. It's my favorite mug, not really because it's unique or particularly interesting, but because it holds the most coffee, and that's all I really need in a mug. But when I went to grab the parfaits, I had a realization.
So I just took these out of the fridge, and they look good, but I don't know, there's so little in here. I just feel kind of like I need more in there for it to be like substance. If I fill it up as it is, it'll just be like this much lemon and then like this much meringue, which isn't really lemon meringue as much as it is meringue with a little bit of lemon stuff at the bottom. So I think I'm gonna have to make more. Yay.
So I steeled myself and downed the rest of my coffee, getting ready for a nice, peaceful drive to the store. Once I got home, I started it all over again, cutting the lemons and such. But you know what? We just did all of this. Let's just zoom through it. After all, it feels kind of boring to repeat all the same stuff over and over again. I know there's that whole quote on how everything's been done before, and that to be truly original is so impossibly rare that it's futile to even really attempt, but I don't really know how heavily that applies to lemon parfaits and dumb voiceovers. But anywho, I think we're good to slow down again. And there. Easy enough, right? Then we can just pour the second batch over the first and pretend like we're not regretting our lives too much for not just doubling the recipe in the first place. Trying to get these even was actually super difficult because from above, it's really not obvious which one has more or less. Speaking of, this is where my siblings both pointed out how uneven they were, which I was definitely aware of. But you can always rely on family to inform you of things you already know, even after you tell them that you know it. But anyway, once everything was properly, though unevenly, filled, using the saran wrap from before, I burned my fingers several more times while pressing it down onto the still steaming filling, which I then took to go chill in the fridge for a few hours, while I started up on the meringue. On a medium heat, we are going to take our saucepan, add the water and cornstarch, and you guessed it, we're gonna whisk it all together. As it condenses, we're going to get a very interesting, vaguely goopy white consistency. And as we keep whisking, this consistency will only get thicker, whiter, and all around just worse to look at, really. Anyway, we're gonna whisk for a little while longer and then take it off the heat. Then we're gonna move over to our main station and we're gonna pour in our egg whites. Then we're gonna grab our cream of tartar. It looks like such a simple word, but every single way I want to pronounce it just feels wrong. So I'm not really sure about that, or why this container's neck is so small! Anyway, after getting inappropriate amounts of angry at a small-necked bottle, instead use 2 half teaspoons to get the job done just as well. Then we're gonna beat our egg whites at an almost terrifying speed. We're gonna add our sugar. Once that has reached a nice froth, we're gonna add in the sugar slowly, such as to not weigh down the meringue too much. Then the vanilla extract. Then beat your egg whites for a short eternity. Seriously, this is at like 5 times speed. Shit sounded like a jet plane taking off in my kitchen, I swear. Then we're gonna add in the white goop from earlier and combine. Now, meringue is really interesting because it's one of the few baked goods where a real, actual, very integral ingredient to it is air. Like, literally, you cannot have meringue without adding air. And that's what takes up the majority of this process. Just whisking and beating and introducing all that air. Now, if you don't have an electric mixer, I guess you can try to hand whisk your meringue, but honestly I'd just get some store-bought whipped cream or something. I'm not gonna lie and say it'll taste just as good, but you will still have your arms afterward, and that feels like a sufficient trade-off to me. Then we can go ahead and grab the parfaits from where they've been chilling in the fridge, and start peeling off the saran wrap. I will say the saran wrap makes a really satisfying crinkling sound after it's been chilled like this. I don't know why I like it so much. It's just really nice. Once we're done ASMRing, we're gonna heft on some of that nice meringue, which I, once again, did not get even remotely even when I was spreading it around. But that's okay. Mistakes are how you make sure people know it's not store-bought, right? Nothing is actually perfect, and trying to make it seem that way just denies the loving humanity of just fucking it up genuinely. Oh geez, look at the time. Here I am rambling when it's almost time for a quick lesson on how to use a blowtorch, featuring Lun, my father.
You click this.
Flip that down. Wash it down.
Down?
Yeah.
Oh!
You was already primed. So, safety
Locked
off.
and loaded. Okay.
Boom. Okay, when you let it up, it'll come back up again. But if you do that and leave it there, it's ready to go at a moment's notice.
Okay.
The safety's off.
Okay.
Okay, so boom, if you're not careful.
So, click. Down.
Down.
Click.
You gotta hold it.
Down and hold.
No,
Oh, it
down.
goes up again.
Yes. After you let go of it. You gotta have some hand strength. I see your hand shaking.
That's because I was whipping,
I know. Let your muscle relax before you do this because it's, you gotta be precise. You can't have
I
shaky hands while you're doing
I'll
this.
be fine!
Yeah, but with my kitchen.
And that concludes a quick lesson on how to use a blowtorch, featuring Lun, my father.
I love your faith in me.
So since I promised I wouldn't set anything on fire, here's a compilation of me setting things on fire. And that's it. The parfaits are toasted and garnished lavishly with the remaining lemons. Now, all that's left is a taste test.
Cheers. The, like, smokiness of the, charred bits that I set on fire with a blowtorch. Why did anyone give me a blowtorch? That was a terrible idea. That was a terrible idea. I could have burned down the house. Like, it tastes so good, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I was happy to be able to share it with my family and share this experience and this journey with all of you. So, thank you for watching.